The three codes of wealth taught by Solomon are the key to achieving ultimate prosperity in your life. Have you ever heard that wisdom is far better to acquire than pure gold, and that understanding is more valuable than the most precious silver? Well, that is what King Solomon, son of the great David, believed. Recognized as one of the richest and wisest men in history, Solomon left a legacy of knowledge on how to achieve true wealth. But what is the secret behind his immense fortune? Is there a universal code that he followed to accumulate so much wealth? The answer is yes, and in fact, Solomon used three main codes that were fundamental to his prosperity. However, one of these codes is hidden in the scriptures of the Bible, and today you will have the opportunity to unravel this secret. This code has the power to open the doors of wealth and prosperity in your life, and also to manifest anything else that you desire to achieve. Before we move on to the video, please leave a like, because what we are going to discuss today is extremely important. Three codes that can transform your financial life. These are not just ordinary codes. They are the same secrets that King Solomon used and that you can also access. The reality is that, by unlocking these codes, a universe of opportunities will open up before you. And this is not limited to money and wealth, but encompasses everything that you consider prosperity. It is important to remember that wealth is subjective and that each person interprets it according to their own level of consciousness. However, by accessing these principles, the same ones that Solomon used and incorporated into his life, you will connect with an unlimited source of abundance. These codes go beyond simply attracting wealth. They are responsible for three fundamental aspects of true prosperity: manifestation, maintenance, and overflow. This is the tripod that supports true wealth and abundance in every sense. If you've been following me for a while, you know that my goal is to share what I've learned in a clear and simplified way, so that anyone can understand and apply it to their lives. Now that you've made it this far, why not give it a like? And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. The video may be a bit long, but I guarantee that the knowledge shared here is extremely valuable, so pay close attention and stay until the end. I'm very happy to have you here, and I'm proud to see that you're committed to seeking this transformation. Have you ever been told that the first step to wealth starts with your way of thinking? Well, that's just the beginning. When I talk about seeing the world, I'm referring to true wealth, the kind that is earned honestly and with integrity. The moment you understand that the world doesn't care about what you want, but rather what you can offer, you begin to realize something that most people ignore. People are often busy demanding their rights, asking for things, without realizing that the real secret is to offer something valuable to the world. If you've grasped the essence of this, leave a comment saying it's by giving that one receives. I'll keep an eye on the comments, and if you do, I'll leave a little heart in your comment as recognition. Now, pay close attention to what I'm going to say. I know that many of you may have objections or doubts when it comes to Solomon and his wealth. Some may think, but Solomon was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, the son of the great King David. Others may point out the mistakes he made throughout his life, saying that he wasn't perfect. And then there are those who point out that Solomon's temple was destroyed, using this as an argument to disregard wealth, because they believe that wealth can lead to ruin. Let me clarify something about wealth. Those who truly understand the nature of wealth know that it offers opportunities, choices, and above all, it amplifies what already exists within us. If you have virtues and good values, wealth will amplify those qualities. On the other hand, if you have flaws and imperfections, wealth will also make them more evident. The fact that Solomon was born into a powerful family, as the heir of King David, did not guarantee that he would maintain his father's wealth, power, and authority. Likewise, if you win a lottery prize, that does not guarantee that you will be rich forever. Something deeper is needed to sustain that wealth. Let's talk a little more about this. Many people judge King Solomon by the mistakes he supposedly made. But I ask, who is perfect? The problem lies in seeking perfection in public figures, politicians, celebrities, artists, and religious leaders. And when they discover that these people also make mistakes, they end up feeling disappointed and condemning them for their flaws, instead of valuing the virtues they possess. It is important to understand that becoming rich does not guarantee eternal wealth. True wealth is only maintained and expanded when you adopt and live according to eternal principles that never die. It is important to emphasize that the purpose of this video is to draw your attention to the codes that Solomon accessed and that you can also access. My goal here is not to impose any religious ideas or dictate what you should or should not believe. On the contrary, the purpose of this channel is to encourage you to think freely and consciously, allowing you to determine for yourself what makes sense and what can benefit your life. Now, let's get into the codes, and I want you to pay attention, because the most important code will be revealed last. So, please watch the video until the end. The Bible tells us that God appeared to Solomon in a dream and said, "Ask me for whatever you wish, and I will give it to you." Solomon, in his humility and wisdom, asked God for wisdom and knowledge to lead the nation. God, seeing Solomon's sincerity, responded that he would receive what he asked for, but would also grant him wealth, possessions, and honor. You may or may not already know, but Solomon was very young when he assumed the throne. According to the scriptures, he had no experience and did not know how to govern. Even though he was the heir to a beloved king and possessed great wealth, Solomon understood that wealth alone was not enough to maintain the reign and authority that his father, David, had left behind. Here we find the first code that Solomon accessed, and that was crucial to his success: the wisdom to govern. Solomon's life clearly shows us that maintaining wealth, power, and prosperity requires much more than simply possessing them. You need to know how to use them wisely and effectively. Simply possessing wealth would not be enough to govern, maintain, and multiply resources the way Solomon did during the years of his reign. To achieve such success, he needed to replace greed with discernment. In Proverbs, Solomon wrote in chapter 16, verse 16, "To get wisdom is better than gold. To get understanding is more precious than silver." And in chapter 17, verse 16, he adds, "Of what use is money in the hand of a fool if he does not want to get wisdom?" These words reflect a profound truth. Your greatest desire should not be to accumulate material wealth, but rather to constantly seek wisdom. It is this wisdom and discernment that are fundamental to manifesting, maintaining, and multiplying wealth, as well as ensuring respect and recognition from the world around you. Let me explain something important. Wealth is already available to you, but in order for you to see it and bring it into your life, you need to be mentally prepared. You need to develop the right mindset to embrace this prosperity fully. Solomon's second code for achieving wealth is about taking possession, which means taking decisive action. Now, pay close attention. Idle hands make a man poor, but diligent hands bring wealth. There is no point in acquiring wisdom if you do not use it to your advantage and take the necessary actions. Think about it. Do you think Solomon simply received wisdom directly from heaven, as if it were a download of knowledge? Or did God grant him opportunities so that he could take possession of this wisdom and thus be recognized as the wisest king of his time? I would like to hear your opinion on this. Write in the comments what you think about it. Now, I want to share something important with you. I believe that we can indeed establish a connection with an infinite source of wisdom. We will explore this concept further when we discuss the third code. However, it is crucial to understand that wisdom only becomes truly useful when we put it into practice. Otherwise, it remains just theoretical knowledge. We live in an era of information abundance, where we can access any knowledge we desire with a simple touch of a screen. However, if we do not apply this knowledge, it becomes useless, an overload of information. There is no point in taking a course or reading a book on investing, written by an author who achieved wealth, if you do not take action and apply what you have learned. In all labor there is profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. Wisdom is only truly wisdom when you put it into practice. Is that clear? I hope so. Now, leaving aside what was taught by Solomon and going into a fundamental teaching of Jesus, which is ask, believe, receive, I need to open your eyes to a common misunderstanding. Many people who begin to study the law of attraction, metaphysics, new thinking, and positive thinking believe that receiving simply means meditating and waiting for good things to happen. At first, I thought so too. Of course, I am not suggesting that you think negatively or expect the worst, but it is essential to understand something fundamental. The true power of receiving lies not in positive thoughts alone, but in the combination of faith and action. Solomon teaches us that wisdom without action is like buried treasure, valuable but inaccessible. Therefore, To manifest wealth and prosperity in your life, it is not enough to simply believe and wait. You must take action, work, and apply the principles you have learned. This is the true secret to transforming knowledge into practical wisdom that can change your life in a lasting way. The concept of receiving taught by Jesus goes far beyond the simple act of waiting. He invites us to take possession of what is already rightfully ours. The word receive comes from the Latin recipiere, which literally means to take back or to come into possession. But what does that really mean? It means accessing on the physical plane that which has already been clearly manifested in your mind. Although I cannot go into this topic in depth today, as the video would be too long, it is crucial that you absorb this idea. To receive is to take possession, and, even more, it is to take action, applying the knowledge and ideas that arise from a clear intention. Believe me, when you have a clear intention and apply the third code, which I will reveal shortly, things begin to happen naturally. But returning to the example of Solomon, it is interesting to note that, after that conversation in a dream between him and God, where God promised not only wisdom and discernment, but also wealth and fame, Solomon's wisdom was immediately put to the test. In the first book of Kings, chapter 3, verse 16 and following, we find a story that illustrates this. You probably already know this story, but if not, listen carefully. One day 2 women, both prostitutes, appeared before the king. One of them said, "My lord, this woman lives in the same house with me. I gave birth to a son, and she was with me in the house. 3 days later, this woman also gave birth to a son. We were alone. There was no one else in the house. One night this woman lay down on her son, and he died. So she got up in the middle of the night and exchanged my son for hers, placing the dead son beside me while I slept. When I woke up in the early morning to nurse my son, I realized that he was dead. But when I looked more closely in the morning, I saw that this was not the son I gave birth to." The other woman, however, insisted, "No, the one who is alive is my son, and the one who is dead is yours." And so they argued before the king. Then Solomon ordered, "Bring me a sword," and he continued, "Cut the living child in 2, and give half to one and half to the other." But the real mother, moved with compassion, pleaded, "Please, my lord, give the living child to her. Do not kill it." The other woman, however, said, "Neither mine nor yours. Cut it in 2. Then King Solomon declared, "Do not kill the child. Give it to the first woman, for she is the mother." When all Israel heard the king's verdict, they came to respect him deeply, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to do justice. Note the importance of the last sentence of this passage. When all Israel heard the king's verdict, they came to respect him deeply, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to do justice. This means that before this judgment, perhaps many in the people of Israel doubted that a young man could have the wisdom necessary to rule and manage wealth. Solomon had to prove his ability by exercising his role as king and, more importantly, by putting into practice the wisdom he had acquired. If you really understood what has been said so far, write in the comments the following sentence: "To manifest riches, I put into action the wisdom acquired." I will repeat: to manifest riches, I put into action the wisdom acquired. Pausing this video to write this sentence is something that may seem simple, but it is essential because it will help to fix this knowledge in your mind and validate it. Now that we have written this, let's continue. Solomon's third code is subtly hidden in the scriptures, and it relates to honor, gratitude, and sincerity. This is a crucial point, so pay close attention. Solomon loved the Lord and demonstrated this by following the decrees of his father, David. However, he also offered sacrifices and burned incense in the holy places. King Solomon went to Gibeon to offer sacrifices, for that was the main holy place, and he offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. Let me explain something about this. I am in no way suggesting that I agree with the practice of animal sacrifices, because that doesn't make sense to me today. However, in the context of Solomon's time, this practice was common and represented, in the consciousness of that time, an act of deep gratitude. And that is exactly the point I want to make. Solomon had a sincere and extremely grateful heart, which is evident when God appears to him in a dream and says, "Ask me for whatever you want, and I will give it to you." Solomon could have asked for anything, but look at his response. You have shown great kindness to your servant my father David, because he was faithful to you, righteous and upright in heart. You have shown great kindness to him, and given him a son who sits on his throne today. Now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most iconic figures in ancient history, known not only for his wisdom but also for his immense wealth, King Solomon. Many have heard of him, but few know the depth of his influence and the extent of his accomplishments. Solomon was a monarch whose wisdom guided not only his kingdom but also inspired generations. He was a leader whose impact transcended his time, and his name is still mentioned with reverence in numerous sacred texts, including the Bible. Solomon, in addition to being a man of great spiritual connection, was responsible for the construction of the first temple of worship in Jerusalem, a monumental feat that cemented his position as one of the most significant rulers of his time. His reign, marked by wise decisions and prudent administration, brought him not only the admiration of his people, but also an immense amount of wealth. It is estimated that he received tons of gold annually, amassing one of the largest fortunes in recorded history. This wealth, combined with his skill in governing, made Solomon one of the most powerful and respected kings of all time. However, his story is not all about success. Solomon is also remembered for his failures, especially in his personal life. He had over 1,000 wives and concubines, and this vast network of relationships ultimately proved to be his undoing. Towards the end of his reign, Solomon saw his great palace and the magnificent temple he had built destroyed by foreign peoples. This downfall serves as a reminder that even for the most powerful, wisdom and wealth must be managed with care. In this video, we will explore 7 fundamental principles that King Solomon followed throughout his life. Before we dive into these teachings, I will share a brief summary of his career and reign, so that we can better understand the context in which these principles were applied. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, take this moment to subscribe and ensure that you do not miss any of our upcoming videos, where we will cover equally profound and enriching topics. Now, back to King Solomon. He is often considered the wisest and wealthiest man in all of biblical history. His fortune has been estimated at a staggering $2.8 trillion, according to several reliable sources, including business magazines that focus on analyzing the wealth of historical figures. While these numbers may seem exaggerated, it is important to remember that at that time, there were other monarchs, such as the pharaohs of Egypt, who also accumulated comparable wealth. Therefore, it is entirely plausible that Solomon could have achieved this magnitude of wealth. But how did Solomon manage to accumulate such wealth and fame? It is closely linked to his divine wisdom, which not only brought him material riches, but also the respect and admiration of people from distant lands. His fame was so great that even the Queen of Sheba, fascinated by the stories of his wisdom and wealth, decided to visit him to witness firsthand the greatness of the King of Israel. Let's continue and take a closer look at Solomon's story. He was the 10th son of King David, one of Israel's most famous monarchs, who ruled for 40 years and 6 months. David, known for his defeat of the giant Goliath with a single stone, was a courageous warrior and a revered king. Solomon, being the 10th son, was not initially in the direct line of succession to the throne, since, according to the law of the time, the crown should be passed to the firstborn. However, fate had other plans for Solomon. His 3 older brothers, Amnon, Chileab, and Absalom, died, leaving the way open for him to assume the throne. The 4th in line of succession, Adonijah, tried to seize power as David grew older, but it was the prophet Nathan who intervened, declaring that Solomon should be the new king, according to God's will. Despite being young and inexperienced, Solomon assumed the throne and, in an act of strength and determination, had his brother Adonijah executed to secure his position as king. These events illustrate just how challenging it was to rule in that era, where politics and power often resulted in death. Solomon reigned from 971 BC to 931 BC, a period of 40 years, just like his father, and his administration was marked by a delicate balance between divine wisdom and complex political strategies. As a king, Solomon was highly intelligent and possessed a wisdom that transcended common understanding. His ability to make just and wise decisions not only brought him wealth, but also cemented his reputation as a just and respected ruler throughout the ancient world. God once spoke to Solomon in a dream, offering him the chance to ask for anything he desired. Faced with this unique opportunity, Solomon, instead of asking for riches, power, or longevity, made a request that surprised and pleased God. He asked for wisdom. Solomon wanted to be the wisest of men, so that he could rule his people with justice and discernment. This request pleased God so much that he granted Solomon incomparable wisdom, making him the wisest man of his time. With this wisdom, Solomon not only distinguished himself as a just ruler, but also as an extraordinary merchant and negotiator. His skill in dealing with trade and making advantageous deals brought him enormous prosperity. It is important to remember that, as king, Solomon already had considerable wealth, but his wisdom allowed him to further expand this fortune, investing in various areas, such as extracting salt from the Dead Sea. Did you know that the word salary comes from the Latin salarium, which literally means payment in salt? At that time, salt was an extremely valuable commodity, to the point of being used as a form of payment. Solomon, with his keen business acumen, exploited this opportunity to the fullest. He developed a lucrative salt mining operation, which became a veritable gold mine. The salt extracted was traded with several countries, including Ethiopia and India, and Solomon ended up controlling much of the trade in Arabia. Accounts based on the Bible indicate that, in 1 year, Solomon received 25 tons of gold, a sum that, at the time, was equivalent to about $240 million. Although this amount may seem modest in modern terms, considering the historical context, it was a colossal sum. Throughout his reign, it is estimated that Solomon accumulated approximately 3,400 tons of gold. In today's values, this could represent trillions of dollars. In addition to his commercial skills, Solomon also excelled in the construction of great works. He was responsible for building the first temple dedicated to God in Jerusalem, a magnificent structure that took 7 years to complete. This temple, known for its grandeur and opulence, was built with large quantities of gold, which reflected not only Solomon's devotion but also his vast wealth. To build this temple, Solomon established a strategic alliance with the king of Tyre, a region that corresponds to modern-day Iran. This alliance allowed the exchange of 4 tons of gold for vast tracts of land. In addition, the king of Tyre sent numerous workers to help build the temple, while Solomon supplied oil and grain in exchange, both products that he also traded on a large scale. Solomon's wisdom, therefore, not only brought him material prosperity, but also respect and admiration, both among his people and among the kings and leaders of other nations. He was a ruler whose legacy of wealth and wisdom remains alive to this day. Perhaps one of the best-known events in Solomon's story is an episode early in his reign involving 2 women who gave birth on the same day and lived together. One of these women tragically accidentally smothered her child in her sleep and, in a desperate act, switched the dead baby with the other woman's living child. When both women came before the king to settle the matter, each claimed to be the mother of the living baby. To settle this dispute, Solomon made a seemingly shocking decision. He ordered the baby to be cut in half, with half to be given to each woman. Faced with this proposal, one of the women agreed, while the other begged to give the child to the other woman, provided that the boy's life was spared. Solomon concluded that the real mother was the woman who would rather lose her child than see it die, and he gave the baby to her. This shrewd and discerning judgment earned Solomon deep respect among his people, reinforcing his reputation as a wise and just king. Solomon's name became associated with wisdom, so much so that the king of Tyre, a close ally, recommended a man named Hiram-Abith to help build Solomon's temple. Hiram-Abith, one of the temple's chief architects, became a legendary figure, especially in the Masonic tradition, where he is revered for his role in the construction of this grand edifice. However, over time, Solomon's life began to change. He, who already had a vast harem with 700 wives and 300 concubines, began to spend his wealth excessively, especially on these women. The Bible relates that these women, many of them foreigners, eventually led Solomon away from God, influencing him to worship other gods. This departure from his faith resulted in the loss of his wisdom and, consequently, the division of his kingdom after his death. His sons, Rehoboam and Jeroboam, divided the kingdom, which ended up fragmenting and weakening over the centuries. Within about 5 centuries, Both the temple and Solomon's palace were destroyed. Although the temple was later rebuilt, it was destroyed again in 70 AD, leaving only the Western Wall, a surviving symbol of this glorious era. This story, rich in detail and teachings, not only highlights Solomon's wisdom and achievements, but also serves as a reminder that straying from solid principles can lead to ruin. And now, after this brief, maybe not so brief, summary of Solomon's life, let's delve into the 7 principles he left us. Today, we'll explore the teachings of the man who, in his time, amassed unimaginable wealth. We're not talking about millionaires or billionaires anymore, but someone whose fortune may have exceeded trillions of dollars in today's dollars. Before we begin discussing the principles Solomon taught us, I'd like to ask for your support. Please like this video. This doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us continue to grow and disseminate quality content here on YouTube. And don't forget to leave a comment about what you think of the video so far. Solomon is known for being the author of the Book of Proverbs, a text full of wisdom, especially useful for those seeking to increase their discernment and improve various areas of life. Without further ado, let's go to the first principle that Solomon teaches us. Wisdom condemns false merit. But what is merit, after all? Merit is the recognition you receive for adding value in some way. For example, when we create a video that reaches 1 million people and it is well edited and well scripted, that is merit because it added value to those who watched it. Now, what is false merit? False merit is when someone tries to receive something without really deserving it. A classic example would be believing that you deserve to earn more at your job simply because you think you work hard, without considering whether your work is really that difficult or important. Another example of false merit is believing that one deserves to win the lottery without having done anything to increase one's chances, other than buying a ticket. Solomon warns us about the dangers of false merit, because wisdom rejects any kind of recognition that is not the result of real effort and value. When someone receives something without being prepared or without having earned it legitimately, it is likely that this wealth will dissipate quickly. This can be seen in many who win the lottery but lose everything in a short time. Therefore, the true route to success and prosperity is the path of wisdom. It not only brings wealth, but also the ability to maintain it and make good use of it. If you don't constantly seek enlightenment and increase your knowledge, there's a good chance you'll lose what you've effortlessly gained. The fundamental principle here is that those who don't seek wisdom often stumble into the unknown. This means that without a constant search for knowledge, you may be heading down a path without knowing exactly where you're going. Without wisdom and understanding, every step can become a trap, and every stumble can seem inexplicable. A great tip for avoiding these stumbles is to never walk alone. Having someone by your side can be crucial, because when you stumble, you have someone to help you get back on your feet. In an investment context, for example, if you lack sufficient knowledge and make choices based on assumptions or inadequate information, you may end up attributing your mistakes to external factors, such as market fluctuations or economic changes, without realizing that the real problem may lie in a lack of solid understanding. Personally, I've made several financial mistakes and initially attributed them to specific causes, only to realize later that the root of the problem was my lack of knowledge. It was only after investing time in studying and learning that I was able to improve my financial situation. The third principle Solomon teaches is about foolishness. A foolish person is one who, even though he knows what he should do, chooses not to do it. If someone is aware of the actions necessary to achieve a goal and yet decides not to take those actions, that person is acting foolishly. For example, someone who knows he should invest to ensure a better financial future but does not do so is foolish. Likewise, a person who is aware of the need to exercise and maintain a healthy diet but does not do so is also acting foolishly. Solomon emphasizes the importance of discipline in combating foolishness. Without discipline, it is easy to give in to temptation and spend money impulsively or procrastinate on essential tasks. The fourth principle is that of laziness. Solomon warns that lazy hands make a person poor. Laziness is the tendency to put off tasks, procrastinate, and avoid responsibilities. Lazy people often avoid investing in their future or starting important projects. Success is not compatible with laziness. Achieving significant results requires hard work and persistence. Laziness can impede progress and lead to financial and personal stagnation. The fifth principle is about the importance of diversifying your seeds and not relying on just one source. Convexity is a relevant concept here. A single stock or investment can perform unpredictably. If you invest all your money in a single stock and it loses value, you can lose everything. Therefore, it is crucial to diversify your investments. If you have several seeds or investments, and one of them fails, you can still reap the rewards of the others. The idea is that, just like in finance, you should always plant and diversify your seeds to ensure a rich and varied harvest. Those who only seek immediate rewards and do not invest in new opportunities are doomed to depend on what they already have, limiting their potential for growth. The sixth principle is that hard work alone is not enough. While effort is essential, it is not the only factor that determines success. It is necessary to add value and find ways to scale what you do. Merit is more related to the value you add than the effort you put in. If you are digging a hole without contributing significantly to the well-being or improvement of others, the effort will not yield substantial rewards. Therefore, it is important to be in a meritocratic environment and seek ways to expand and improve your activities to achieve meaningful results. Finally, the seventh principle is that wisdom goes beyond simple knowledge. Many people have vast knowledge, especially in the context of investing and finance. However, having knowledge is not the same as having wisdom. Wisdom involves the practical application of that knowledge in an effective way. You can know all the rules of the financial market, but if you do not have the wisdom to apply them correctly, your knowledge will not have an impact. True wisdom is the ability to transform knowledge into actions that lead to success and prosperity. Sometimes, it can feel like we've gone a long time without really learning anything. We observe other people who seem to have a wealth of knowledge, but even they may not be the best investors in the long run. Knowledge alone is not enough. Wisdom is essential. While knowledge is about what you know, wisdom is the ability to apply that knowledge in a practical and effective way. Wisdom goes beyond mere theoretical learning. It manifests itself when you put knowledge into practice and achieve positive results. Simply accumulating information is not enough. You need to apply what you've learned and, through that practical application, bear real fruit. For example, imagine that you want to get your driver's license without taking lessons, simply because you believe that you have a good grasp of driving from your experience playing simulation games like GTA. While you may have theoretical knowledge about driving, the actual practice can be quite different. This simple analogy illustrates the importance of transforming theoretical knowledge into practical experience to achieve true success. Now, let's explore Solomon's 6 key pieces of advice for those seeking wealth and wisdom. The first piece of advice is found in Proverbs 13 verse 20. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm. Wisdom and Solomon's name have been closely linked throughout history. He is considered one of the fathers of personal development literature, and his concepts are fundamental to those seeking prosperity. Solomon firmly believed in the connection between true wisdom and true wealth. In his writings, he left a legacy of wisdom for all who desire to live a prosperous life. Applying these truths to your daily life can guide you toward personal and financial success. Turning this dream into reality is possible by learning and applying Solomon's secrets. Many of us have dreamed since childhood of finding a treasure that can change our lives, something that brings meaning and fills an inner void. Solomon describes wisdom as that treasure. By following his principles, you can move forward, be happy, and achieve wealth. These are not just secrets, but absolute truths that everyone should learn and implement. To get started, comment below, "I will be rich and wise like Solomon." This will help affirm your commitment to success. Now, let's move on to Solomon's first secret. If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up anywhere. This principle, found in Proverbs 20 verse 18, highlights the importance of having a clear plan and solid strategies. Ask yourself, where do you want to be in 10 years? Close your eyes and visualize your life in the future, your financial situation, career, relationships, lifestyle, and spiritual condition. How do you envision your life in all of these areas? Dreaming is important, but it's not enough to just have dreams. You need to have a concrete plan to turn those dreams into reality. A dream without a plan is just a wish. To achieve financial success, personal fulfillment, career success, and spiritual growth, it's essential to have a detailed plan that will take you from where you are now to your desired goals.